Hello everyone, this is part 29 of What If Naruto was in the 7 Ninja Swordsman, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist. To see more, comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Madara emerged on the mountain top overlooking Kirigakure and was not disappointed when he found his ally standing at its edge. The young Kage was calmly smoking, which drew a curious look from the Uchiha as he stepped beside the man. "Those things will kill you," he quipped with a smirk, earning a dry smile from Naruto. "You and I both know that is not how I'll ever go out," replied Naruto sarcastically, making the Uchiha chuckle and offer a respectful nod before a more grim look arrived on his face. Maizetsu spies across the world have reported that the Tsuchikage has positioned many of his troops strategically in the land of Waterfall near the borders that they share with Kirigakure. Many more are stationed in Iwagakure, where he will be hosting the Kage Summit. Konoha as well as all the other nations are also preparing their shinobi and moving special forces units near your borders secretly. "Do you understand what this means, Naruto?" asked Madara gravely. He watched true disappointment arrive on the Mizukage's face as he crushed his cigarette and clenched his other fist painfully. Madara couldn't say he was surprised by what was happening, considering he had warned the young Kage about the true nature of the shinobi world, but he felt saddened nonetheless over what his ally was feeling right now. He reminded Madara of Hashirama in many ways after all, a friend whom he loved and disagreed with strongly at the same time. Tobirama would never support such a drastic action. Besides, Konoha is an ally of Kirigakure, argued Naruto in defense. "Your father is just a cog in the great wheel. I agree he wouldn't support such an action against you, but he's not the Hokage anymore. Hiruzen is, and you have already threatened him once on discovering how they lied to you about Ino's death in the past. You have destroyed the Water and Lightning Daimyo's rules alongside their entire families. You overthrew Hanzo Uzumaki, who was a key ally of Hiruzen, turning Azu from a steadfast to an unreliable ally. You crushed one great village and nation alongside annexing few smaller ones. What's to stop you from taking more? No matter how much you want to make peace with all these villages and nations, you are the gravest threat to their very existence and way of living. A military threat to the shinobi world order and a political one to the daimyos who truly control this world," explained Madara patiently. The Uchiha stepped in front of the young Kage and looked straight into the man's eyes, even as despair spread across his heart. "You are the devil that they all fear most, greater than the Otsutsuki whom they don't know. Try talking to them if you want, but it would still end in conflict. In the end, they find it easier to blame one man than their own flawed shinobi world that gave birth to the very devil that they fear," said Madara somberly. It was truly disheartening for Naruto to hear that. He understood why it was happening, and it made sense in a twisted way for him to be considered as the enemy of the shinobi world by the ones who ruled it. However, a part of him wondered just how much more harm could human beings cause to each other in the pursuit of the goals, and he was a part of the problem itself. Despite witnessing the horrors of 2 great ninja wars and countless deaths, the shinobi world was willing to shed even more rivers of blood until the end of time. Was this the kind of world he would bestow upon his children and loved ones? Make them continue living in an endless hell? To repeat the cycle over and over again? You play the bad guy next. Hanzo Uzumaki's words came back to haunt him once again as the Mizukage wondered if the first Izukage had truly foreseen such turn of events with his experience. Even if this was the bitter reality, there was no going back now. "I'll try regardless. And if they still refuse to see reason, then they'll rue their own decision," promised Naruto fiercely, his intent clear for the Uchiha to see. Knowing what the 4th Mizukage had planned for exactly such a scenario made a part of Madara's heart wish the Kages saw reason, for none of them could imagine the hell they would be facing at the hands of this devil. "Will Kiri or Azu stand with you?" asked Madara seriously. "This is our fight, Madara. We swore to each other that we would never act like the despicable Kages that send others to do their bidding while saving their own lives, that we would fight at the head of our battles and crush our enemies with our own hands. If the time comes, will you fight by my side?" questioned Naruto honestly. "Till the bitter end, Naruto. It doesn't matter what they throw at us, it was always down to the 2 of us and the forces under our command. I'd rather fight in an army of sheep led by lion than an army of lions led by sheep themselves. Hey, Those fools don't know what they are going to face, said Madara excitedly. Does that mean you will be on the front line? Asked Naruto curiously. Of course. It's been damn too long in the shadows, it's time I remind these brats who Madara Uchiha is. You could use my help on the battlefield and I'll bring in some special surprises too, answered Madara frankly. This can only end in one way for us, Madara. I hope you understand that, replied Naruto with a resigned smile. Victory or an even complete victory. A surprised Mizukage looked at the older Uchiha who had a confident smile upon his face as he extended his hand towards him. We'll do it. Together, we shall put an end to 3,000 years of B history ruled by shinobi with our own hands. We won't falter and keep moving forward until that day comes, promised Naruto sincerely, as he shook the Uchiha's hands. A smile came upon Madara's lips as he glanced at the only man who truly understood his dream for humanity. Something which even his best friend Hashirama couldn't. As their chakra made contact with each other through the handshake, their eyes widened in shock when they both saw a fleeting glimpse of an old man possessing the Rinnegan looking at the Uchiha and Senju clan descendants with a relieved smile upon his aged face before disappearing away. It was midnight when Naruto found himself discreetly visiting a house on the outskirts of Kirigakure. He easily evaded the very Anbu he had put on guard duty and entered the targeted property to find the person that he wanted to meet to be fast asleep. He looked at the disgraced shinobi and could not help but wonder how his actions had led him here. Just as Naruto's own would soon lead him to his own destiny. Yagura. He called out the disgraced third Mizukage and waited patiently as the man awoke from his slumber to groggily look at the intruder in his home. Compared to the ending days of the Civil War, the man had progressed a lot. Instead of the dark dungeons, he now had a place of his own thanks to his service and the multiple missions he undertook for Kirigakure in the campaign against Kumogakure. Not that he had much of a choice, for he was of the man who overthrew him. The same man who his entire clan and the reason for Yagura's continued existence. Naruto was not surprised when he found an unsettling hatred arrive in the man's eyes as he looked at the fourth Mizukage. What brings you here after all this time, my fellow traitor? Asked Yagura scathingly. The fourth Mizukage could not help but wonder if not for the seal preventing him from revealing the truth that his tailed beast had told him, Yagura would have revealed Naruto's true identity as a former Spartan and spy long ago. Good to see you too, Yagura, answered Naruto calmly. You promised to let me if I served you in the Second Great Ninja War. I did that. Why the hell am I still alive then? How long will you keep me away from my family after taking them all away? Asked Yagura angrily. He had made his wish to clear to this man so many times ever since the embers of conflict started to dwindle. Instead he found himself marched back home alongside the army, confined to house arrest, and now was informed that he would be escorting Naruto to a cage summit of all places. I will give you the freedom that you seek, Yagura. You will see your family soon, but before that you have one more duty to fulfill towards this nation, said Naruto honestly, earning a scoff in return from the Karatachi clan head. Why should I care about this nation? The people abandoned me and just watched as you my entire clan. Replied Yagura bitterly. Because you were the third Mizukage, no matter how brief. Yagura's eyes widened upon being reminded of who he once was even as Naruto came beside him and looked straight into his eyes. We must all pay the price of our sins. In life and in death, maybe even beyond that. The disgraced Cage was left speechless as his successor revealed what was it exactly that he wanted from him, the price to gain his freedom to finally and be with his clan in the afterlife. A way to end his suffering and maybe even achieve something that would redeem his and the Karatachi clan's name. Even save Kirigakure from certain doom. You have everything that I ever wanted, the respect of this nation, the trust of the warriors and shinobi, the love of a family, and yet why go so far? Asked Yagura silently. Because I can see something beyond this hell, a better world or at least a new path where men like us are never born. I am a spy and yet I care about this nation, its people and their future with all my heart, which is why I need your help. You're the only one who can, answered Naruto truthfully. You're the craziest person that I have ever met. Naruto laughed boisterously upon that honest statement, making Yagura shake his head tiredly. But maybe this world needs someone like you. A devil who can give a taste of its own medicine to the shinobi world. If you ask me, humanity can go F itself and S in a ditch. It's not worth saving or risking all that you have now, advised Yagura frankly, without mincing words as usual. This is where we differ, disagreed Naruto calmly. Is this truly the only way? Asked Yagura curiously, making Naruto look at him with an honest smile. One day, it is my hope that all nations can unite under one cause, which is humanity and its future in this universe. Men shall always rise and fall, but humanity will be eternal. The Empire of Man is a world in which Kirigakure shall stand alongside mankind as its ally and not as a pariah, promised Naruto. He looked down to see Yagura offering him his hand, which the fourth Mizukage shook somberly. Then let's keep moving forward until we both face our own reckoning. The two Mizukages nodded at each other and for the first time felt a strange peace within their own hearts. 3 days later, Naruto had a content smile upon his lips as he watched Mangetsu and Haku take their wedding vows in a holy temple near the feudal capital of the former water daimyo. Attending the event were a small group of people, which included the bride's father and clan, whereas the fourth Mizukage himself stood in the place of father, best man and brother for Mangetsu, who had none. The 7 ninja swordsmen were also present alongside General Abe and many other top commanders of this nation. Naruto saw his own wife Mei smiling and cheering the newly married couple as they kei each other, even as their trusted maid kept a dutiful watch over the twin children nearby. Watching them all be so happy and at peace for once made all the effort that went into organizing this wedding at such a short notice worth it. Knowing what was to come, it was all he could offer to them after all they had done for him. A truly wonderful event at such a short notice you have organized, Lord Fourth. Naruto turned to his right to see General Abe stepping by his side and offer him a grateful smile, which made him offer the older warrior a respectful nod. It was the least I could do for them, replied the Mizukage calmly. I have been filled in on the plan we all are supposed to eat should things turn south at the Cage Summit. Rest assured, I alongside Lord Minae's Terumi and Lord Yuki will keep our homeland and other territories safe with the reserves while you and the legions do what's necessary, assured General Abe sincerely. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. I would prefer for everyone to see reason peacefully than through the tip of a sword after such a brutal and costly war, answered Naruto. I suppose you can't tell me the reason we agreed to a ceasefire and attempt negotiations apart from the obvious military challenges in our prolonged campaign against Iwagakure? Asked General Abe with a shrewd smile. All in due time at the Cage Summit, General. I'll lay across everything for the entire world to witness so together we can chart our future. Whatever it may be, replied Naruto seriously. Seems you have quite the show in mind for all of us to see. Well, I for one look forward to it, agreed General Abe with a gentle smile. The veteran general was intrigued when he watched the Mizukage look at him with the utmost seriousness visible in his eyes. General, should I fall or anything unfortunate happen at the Cage Summit, I am entrusting you with Kirigakure's future. Keep our people safe until things stabilize and do what's right no matter the cost. Abe understood clearly what was being asked of him, and for once he had no hesitation in giving his answer with the utmost sincerity. I promise, Lord Fourth. 2 days later, Naruto stood in the largest training ground of Kirigakure and was proud to see all the legions of this nation assembled before him in all their might, led by members of the 7 ninja swordsmen. Beside him stood his wife, and in the back stood a disinterested but silent Yagura as well as a calm Fukai, all 3 Jinchuriki who will be accompanying him to the Cage Summit. He looked at his army and realized this was the final chance he had to speak to them in person before walking into a brutal conflict if things didn't go as per his plan. My warriors. Thousands of souls looked at him without a flinch and stood even more straighter than before upon hear his war cry. This is our time. Yagura clenched his fist as he saw the absolute loyalty and admiration in the eyes of the Kiri shinobi as the 4th Mizukage called out to them. For all his faults and hideous truth, he could not deny that the blonde man before him had a way with connecting with the hearts of shinobi. Knowing what he did now made him understand the man a little, even if he hated him from the bottom of his heart for ordering the E of the Karatachi clan. You and I are the same, Naruto. Just as I did what I felt was best for the future of this nation, you are doing what you feel is best. In the end, the two of us are just selfish men with a mission of our own. Our journey shall end in hell together because it is where devils like us belong, thought Yagura with a resigned smile. Unknown of his predecessor's thoughts, the 4th Mizukage continued his speech to their shinobi. Each of us has worked tirelessly and offered their hearts to create a better world. It is not just for the sake of our people but for the sake of all those that joined us in our long march. From this point forward, our struggle is for a better future for all of humanity," yelled Naruto fiercely. Fukai looked at the man who destroyed his nation, his clan, his family, the one who erased the land of lightning and Kumogakure from the annals of history. Now, he was forced to follow the very same man's command in exchange for a peaceful future for the rest of his people. For all his brutality during the war, Naruto Namikaze had treated every citizen of Fukai's nation who surrendered to his rule with equal respect and rights as those he provided to the people of Kirigakure. In the year that followed since the defeat, the Mizukage with the help of his wife who was a fellow Jinchuriki like Fukai did more for the downtrodden citizens of his nation than their own lightning daimyo had ever done in decades. The fact that Jinchuriki like him got equal rights and even respect was a testament of Mei's efforts as well as her husband's magnanimity. It was why he could understand why this army loved this man and would march into hell itself if he asked. "If I had been born in this nation, I would have volunteered to serve someone like you instead of simply serving out of duty towards my people." Today we take a new step towards building that future for humanity by attempting to create a lasting peace and cooperation with other nations. To set aside our differences and work for the greater good of mankind. It won't be easy or without us, but for the sake of our children and loved ones, it must be done. I ask every one of you to join me in this reform," requested Naruto passionately. Mei was pleased to see the 7 ninja swordsmen thumping their fists against their sea. Following their example, every legion under each of their command followed that action in unison, earning a proud nod from their cage. "Make no mistake, we shall strive for this future. Should the other nations disrespect this dream or consider this cooperation as our weakness, then what shall be our answer to them?" demanded the 4th Mizukage coldly. "Death." The thunderous war cry from the Kiri army made Fukai flinch, Yagura to smirk and Mei to take a deep breath and look at her husband who nodded decisively at that promise. "I promise you this as the 4th Mizukage, I will never stop fighting for the future and interests of this nation, be they in the Cage Summit or the battlefield." The roar of the Kirigakure army echoed across their entire village, making Naruto's eyes moist as he glanced at the army that he had created. Pride bloomed within his heart as he looked at the men and women who had followed him in battle after battle, fought and beat for his victories, never wavered even once no matter what got thrown at them. Even now they were all willing to fight against the entire world if needed for the sake of his vision. These people made him a Kage in the truest sense, an honor his own motherland never deemed him worthy of because he wasn't an Uzumaki by B. The 7 ninja swordsmen, Mei, Yagura and Fukai alongside every member of the Kiri army were left speechless when the 4th Mizukage bowed respectfully towards them all sincerely. It only lasted for a fleeting moment, even as a deafening silence engulfed the entire field. They watched their Kage rise back up and unleash his infamous sword Muramasa and pointed it towards them with an unmistakable pride for them in his eyes. "It has been my greatest honor to fight alongside every one of you and our fallen comrades." With a firm but respectful nod, the Mizukage created clones of himself that took up positions with each of the 5 legions of Kirigakure led by the 7 ninja swordsmen. Dark wings made up of ash-like chakra emerged on his back alongside those of the 3 Jinchuriki accompanying him to the Cage Summit. As one they rose off the ground as their army started its march towards the village gates. As Naruto led the army once again, he was astonished to see not only the villages of Kirigakure but people from all parts of their country gathered within and outside the walls. With every passing moment, even more citizens were arriving. Proud smiles and hope evident in their cheerful gazes. "Lord 4th, good luck." He looked below to see a group of young children waving at him excitedly with bright smiles upon their faces. And it was not just the children, but everyone. "The future of Kirigakure and the world is in your hands. Lady Mei, thank you for improving the future of our children. All of you come back home safely, all right. Show those other nations our true power." Yagura had an openly visible jealous smile on hearing the sheer amount of cheering being bestowed upon his successor and his army. "What a grand send-off," he commented sarcastically. He expected a sharp rebuke in response to that comment but was surprised when he received a wry smile from Mei and a smirk from Fukai. "Well, we weren't being secretive, and with the kind of commotion we made, this was bound to happen," replied Mei sheepishly. "So much for secrecy," commented Yagura with a sarcastic smile. Fukai curiously watched some of the 7 ninja swordsmen like Amayuri and Jinpachi actively cheering back towards their people alongside the legions that followed them, making their countrymen even more euphoric. This is the first time I have seen civilians and shinobi getting along so well, said Fukai, the former Kumogakur Jinchuriki, curiously, something which his own heavily militaristic village had never seen during its brief existence. Their people respected the power of their shinobi, but the sheer amount of admiration and blind trust in the eyes of these people for their shinobi was something which was quite unique. As far as the B history of this nation goes, this has never happened before until this era, admitted Yagura begrudgingly. Mei smiled upon that remark even as all 3 Jinchuriki looked curiously at the man who had made this reality happen. She didn't miss the impact of Yagura's admission upon her husband, as well as the sheer cheering the 4th Mizukage was witnessing from his people. A bright smile came upon the blonde Kage's face as he raised his right hand high in the air. Yay! Mei's eyes widened in shock upon hearing that ferocious roar from the 4th Mizukage that echoed across the entire village and every citizen, making them all go silent for a moment, before the entire crowd returned that roar with equal ferocity, making their Kage grin with pride even as a lone tear fell from his eye. Yay! As he roared once again out of pure joy and hope, he was more than delighted when the Kirigakure army and its citizens roared back together in unison, making the very ground shake. The 4th Mizukage raised his infamous sword with a renewed determination and pointed it forward with a fierce look in his eyes. Our final mission for a peaceful future for all of humanity begins today. Kirigakure's legions alongside its citizens roared together one last time upon hearing their Kage's final command. Advance! Iwagakure. Onoki had stood proudly at his master's side as the 2nd Tsuchikage welcomed leaders from across the world inside their strongest castle built upon the tallest mountain overlooking the great village of Iwagakure. The delegates were invited respectfully inside the war room and made to sit at the designated seats across a large and well-polished wooden round table. Proper refreshments had been served for each leader and their escorts, as was the custom. Iwagakure's administrative ninjas had even taken great care to not make the most bitter nation leaders sit right beside each other, but having just stopped the Second Great Ninja War where virtually every nation took part in one or the other side, it was a doomed task. At the start of this war, 5 great nations ruled the world alongside several smaller ones allied with different sides. Now, they were down to the 3 great nations and 4 smaller ones. 7 nations in total that would decide the fate of humanity for many decades to come. Everyone inside his village and shinobi leadership knew about Onoki's desire to continue the war and see Konoha alongside Kirigakure learn their real place in the world. But the 2nd Tsuchikage, Lord Mu, thought otherwise alongside the Earth nation's daimyo himself. They were wary of their enemy's strength, especially the war prowess of the 4th Mizukage. It was why this summit was organized by Iwagakure and every standing nation had been invited to be a part of it. Their strategists believed it was the best possible option for them to arrive at an acceptable peace with the other nations now that all their allies had fallen. Even their enemies knew prolonging the war would have devastating consequences for everyone and had agreed to negotiations, even Kirigakure, much to Onoki's surprise. Maybe Lord Mu had truly seen something which he hadn't, and in the event he was proven wrong, Onoki had been entrusted with their backup plan of action which he had perfectly with some unexpected help. He could not help but smile when he saw Hiruzen Sarutobi, the 3rd Hokage, walking towards them alongside his escort Tobarama Senju, the 2nd Hokage, Mito Uzumaki, the 9-tails Jinchuriki, and Bunpuki, the former Sand Jinchuriki of the one-tailed beast now under Konoha's service. It's a pleasure to meet you, Lord Mu, said Hiruzen with as much confidence as he could muster, even offering his hand to the older Tsuchikage, a gesture which was accepted and returned by the masked Kage after a very long look at his younger counterpart. Welcome to Iwagakure, said Mu guardedly, but his tone held the required respect. The 2nd Tsuchikage surprised his own men by walking forward and actually offering his hand to Tobarama, which the pale-skinned Senju shook cautiously. It's been quite some time since we met last, Lord Tobarama. And you grow even more beautiful with every passing day, Lady Mito, said Mu, as he then came Mito's hand, earning a shrewd look from the redhead. And you're as ambitious and cunning as ever, Lord Mu, replied Mito sharply. Onoki bristled at the subtle insult, but his Kage laughed it out before acknowledging the Sand Jinchuriki with words of condolence for his fallen nation and Kazekage. The monk simply nodded and remained silent, much to Mew's ire, as he had expected some sort of reaction from a former ally now turned prisoner. Hiruzen and Onoki exchanged a glance, and the Iwagakure Junin couldn't help but offer a firm nod, earning a relieved smile from the third Hokage as their party was escorted inside the war room by other Iwagakure ninjas. The next was the leader of Omegakure, Hidden Rain Village, Hanzo Salamander, who much to Onoki's surprise was quite a courteous man whom even the Tsuchikage had pleasant words with before being escorted inside. The Hidden Grass Village was next, as its Kage Yosuke Meiji exchanged just a curt handshake and basic pleasantry with the Tsuchikage, a clear representation of their former allies' changed attitude now that the war situation had developed contrary to Iwagakure's promises. They had fought for Iwa and had now lost half their territory to Konoha's retaliation. Onoki spotted the lone exception to a summit full of ninjas as Mifune of the samurai exchanged a respectful bow before the Tsuchikage, one which the Kage returned in equal respect. Frankly, Onoki doubted why the samurai were even invited, but the Earth Daimyo felt they deserved the honor despite being weaker than shinobi and being heavily outnumbered. It was the highest honor a sect of warriors without a nation could gain, more than what they deserved if Onoki was being honest. Followed by Mifune came the leader of their closest and strongest standing ally land of waterfalls. Its first Kage Kakazu was scary looking and the tallest man Onoki had ever seen. It was rumored the man had went up against Hashirama Senju in the previous war in single combat and lived, a feat very few shinobi except Madara Uchiha could boast about. When the Takikage looked down at him due to Onoki's smaller frame, the young shinobi felt a shiver across his entire body when those green malice-ridden eyes saw right through him. Definitely a shinobi he wanted to avoid in battle. Thankfully their nations were close allies facing the mutual threat of Kirigakure. Only two more national leaders left to arrive: Azuchiogakure and Kirigakure. One was a staunch ally of Konoha, which was rumored to be undergoing a secret civil war surprisingly, while the other was the biggest threat to Onoki and his nation's very existence. If only he had the power to obliterate them both from the annals of history. Any further thoughts didn't come to his mind when he spotted a trio of Kunoikis approaching towards them. Unlike the other nations who had fully utilized the allowed limit of a Kage being escorted by 3 supporters, this new group was a member short. And unlike the other delegations that had slim to none Kunoikis in their escort for the summit, this group was made up of women completely. Even Lord Mew looked as if he had seen a ghost from the past when he saw a stunning blonde leading the group. Granted, she was one of the most beautiful women even Onoki had ever seen, with her unblemished pale skin, tall and slender figure and long blonde hair, but it was her uniform and the Azukage's hat that left him speechless alongside his mentor. Inoue Namikaze. I thought you had S in the first war, the Reikage assured me of that personally, said Lord Mew in barely concealed shock, earning a cunning smile from the blonde woman. I am very much alive and well. The second Azukage at your service, said Inoue sarcastically, making one of her bodyguards chuckle. Namikaze? Asked Onoki with barely concealed hatred, some of his intent leaking out, earning AM wrath in return from the Azukage's escort, particularly from the younger redhead whom her leader had to rein in with an admonishing look. Kushina, no need to be rude to our hosts unnecessarily. Let's not lose our manners, warned Inoue in an icy cold voice. Onoki flinched as the female Azukage gave him a sharp look that made his heart skip a beat out of sheer terror, for those eyes reminded him so much of a certain Mizukage. Commander Reika, I am tired from our long journey. Lord Mew, shall we get some refreshments please? Asked Inoue calmly. The stunned Tsuchikage got out of his stupor and quickly agreed to the request, directing his other subordinates to escort the Azu delegation inside. As soon as they were gone, Onoki looked at his mentor and Kage sharply. Lord Mew, this is. Shut your mouth, Onoki. Do not mess with that woman if you know what's best for you. We will deal with her in time, ordered Mew strictly, earning a nod from his student quickly. As the young Junin actually looked at the bingo book, he flinched even more upon reading some of the past exploits of this new Azukage. The fact that she had destroyed an entire Kumogakure battalion that also had shinobi twisted with the chakra of tailed beasts single-handedly was a testament to her prowess. More importantly, this directly changed a lot of things, but Onoki didn't get much time to think over the consequences when the final delegation arrived a few minutes later. It was clearly visible from the way the Iwa shinobi manning the castle's walls and inner courtyard froze in their spots as a commanding and very much intimidating chakra signature entered. Around him were not 3 but 4 Jinchuriki, making his total number of group members higher than permissible limit. In the very entrance itself, the 4th Mizukage was making his presence felt much more than any other cage before him. Onoki couldn't help but see the striking resemblance the man shared with the new Izukage, with his pale skin, smooth golden blonde hair and the same piercing blue eyes. It actually confirmed something which he had refused to believe earlier. The Mizukage was wearing his Junin flak jacket and dark pants covered by a stark white haori with his lure imprinted on the back. Around him were 4 fully armed Jinchuriki, 2 from the fallen Kumogakure and 2 from Kirigakure, his wife Mei Terumi, and the dethroned former Mizukage Yagura Karatachi. The man had an aura that commanded the attention of everyone around him, and the looks which made quite a few Kunoiki from Iwa itself steal glances only to receive a look from the man's wife which made them look away quickly. Quite the entrance. Lord Fourth, said Mew carefully, displeasure evident in his tone not just at the man but also at his own men, who had informed him that this man had left Kiri with 3 Jinchuriki, when in secret he was bringing 4. You broke protocol, Mizukage. We had agreed that each cage could only bring 3 escorts. You brought 1 more than everyone else, and a Jinchuriki at that. Said Onoki scathingly, only to earn a cold smile so similar to that female Izukage that it was haunting. I think it's only fair to bring in a little extra, considering I am walking directly into a village we are yet to negotiate a peace treaty with. Besides, I wanted dear Yugito to see the greater Wagakure in all its glory. Are you telling me you are scared of one curious girl over the thousands of shinobi you have at your back here? Here I thought you had more courage and faith than that, taunted Naruto sweetly. Mei and Yugito couldn't help but smirk on seeing Onoki bristle at that acidic remark, while Yagura and Fukai observed the second Tsuchikage giving a pointed look to his student before looking back at the Mizukage. We can set this aside, Lord Fourth. However, for the sake of parity, one of your Jinchuriki needs to stay in the guest quarters in this castle. If we allow you to bring more than allowed people with such dangerous powers at that, the other cages would not take it lightly, warned Mew gently. Every nation including yours has every Jinchuriki under their command inside that room. Mine will do the same or this summit is over, challenged Naruto without a flinch. Are you that inflexible and used to breaking the established rules of conduct? Asked Mew with a heavy frown. The fact that I am here to negotiate should answer your first remark, Lord Second. And let's not debate about the rules of conduct, because each of us would be proven guilty of failing that. If it's any consolation, I seek peace for my people but will not make unnecessary compromises, more than what I already have. In my place, you would have done the same damn thing, and we both know it. So, what shall it be, Lord Mew? Questioned Naruto in return, unwavering determination present in his hardened gaze which made Onoki clench his fists. Unlike his enraged student, the second Tsuchikage was impressed with what he had seen so far. For all his faults and the threat he was to Mew's village, the Tsuchikage had seen more resolve in this man than any other cage that he had met today. Naruto Namikaze was different from the others, be it the battlefield or in times of peace. He could now understand what Genjutsu Hozuki had seen in the man that made the second Mizukage choose this man as his successor over everyone else, including his own son and other ninja clan lords from Kirigakure. It led to a brutal civil war which this man won. The fact that he kept Yagura around as a trophy of his triumph made Mew respect him more. After Hashirama and Tobarama Senju, he was the first person whom Mew was genuinely curious to interact with further. Very well. For the sake of a successful cage summit, we will allow this. I hope the other cages don't take too much offense to your brazenness, remarked Mew with a smirk. I'm right here to resolve those offenses should they arise, answered Naruto with a cunning smile, even as Mew ordered his subordinates to escort the Kiri delegation inside while ignoring his fuming student and focusing on the Mizukage's back. With 4 Jinchurikis by your side, only a foolish cage would like to challenge you openly so soon without substantial backup, and you know it, Naruto Namikaze. Tobarama Senju had gone deathly pale upon witnessing his former lover and mother of his son, Inoue Namikaze, enter the war room alongside her 2 escorts. He was left even more speechless when the woman who was supposed to be gracefully walked forward and sat on the chair reserved for the Izukage. He was not the only one in this shock, as the other cages also were quite astonished, for Hanzo Uzumaki had been the leader of Izu ever since its existence. On being questioned over it by the Amekage, who also happened to share the same first name as the previous Izukage, Inoue answered simply with her usual friendly but sharp smile. Long story short, we felt a change was necessary at the top. A progressive one at that, which ended up with the Uzumaki clan asking me to be the next Azukage, said Inoue. They must be really desperate if they chose somebody not from their own clan and a woman at that to lead them. Has Azu become so weak? Such a shame, mocked Kakazu, the leader of the land of waterfalls. Says the bee of a Wagakur. Hope Iwa's rocks aren't too hard for your wateria. It took a moment for that remark to sink in before nearly everyone burst out laughing, except for Kakazu, who was livid as he unleashed his full K intent, making his bodyguards take up arms. Shut up, woman, or I'll K you, threatened Kakazu furiously. Make me, be. Mito gawked at the sheer ballsy attitude of the first female Kage of the shinobi world. A part of her wondered how she was alive and could only imagine it had something to do with Naruto's recent actions in Azu. Looking at the blonde beauty now, Mito clearly understood as to why she was the only woman Tobirama had ever loved and even had a child with. No one else could have gotten through to a stubborn man like him. It was quite visible that Naruto had not only inherited his mother's looks, powers and most importantly a frightening courage. In a room full of several Kages and Jinchurikis, the former of whom were all men, Inoue Namikaze remained firm. Despite having the smallest army left among all nations, Azu had a strong leader willing to defend its honor and people without hesitation. So this is the revolution that you planned, Naruto, thought Tobirama in disbelief. He was alarmed when Kakazu actually moved to attack the Azukage, making Hiruzen and the Senju clan head to get up from their seats swiftly alongside many others delegates. A lone kunai was thrown by Inoue, which Kakazu dodged with a wry smirk, only to freeze the very next second when a cold kunai was placed at his end and Inoue Namikaze stood behind him with an intimidating cold blue gaze boring into his very soul. I wonder how it feels to K.A. Kage, she remarked. The other Kages inside the room had clearly seen the feared teleportation technique right before their eyes, the same as the fourth Mizukages and Tobirama Senju himself. Even Kakazu, for all his rage and bravado, took a few steps away from the woman as she placed the kunai back in her pouch, even as her twin escorts had already detained the Takikaga ninjas swiftly. Azushiogakure had made its point. They were not to be underestimated by anyone. In a world where power was everything, the dangerous display did its intended job, as the other Kages asked Kakazu to maintain the decorum while asking Inoue to do the same, albeit with much more caution and respect. She actually complied, forcing Kakazu to do the same alongside the escorts from both smaller nations backing off. As Inoue walked back to her seat, she found Tobirama staring at her intensely, making her pause and look at her former lover. It's been a long time, she whispered cordially. Tobirama was still unable to say anything. How was one supposed to feel or react when the only woman you ever loved, the mother of your child, one who was supposed to be S for so many years, turned up before you very much alive? Thankfully, he had Mito for such situations. His sister-in-law actually greeted her clan's new Kage with a friendly smile. It's truly historic that my clan chose a new leader, and that too from someone outside RB. Konoha looks forward to working with you, Lady Second, said Mito honestly. What happened to your predecessor? Asked Hiruzen rather sharply. He chose to retire. After all, he was very old. It was difficult to inform our allies quickly considering the situation. I hope you understand, Lord Third, answered Inoue calmly, but the edge in her voice was clear for Hiruzen to hear. What are your intentions, Lady Second? He asked again seriously, ignoring Mito and Tobirama's heavy frowns alongside a sharp look from the new Azukage. To safeguard Azu's interests and future. As I'm sure every Kage is here to do for their own nation, including you, replied Inoue respectfully. Before Hiruzen could say anything more, his mentor spoke for the first time. Why go so far? Asked Tobirama in a barely audible whisper, but his former lover did hear it even as the door to the war room opened once again. You'll never understand, Toby. The second Azukage had a faint smile upon her lips, unlike every other Kage, as they saw the fourth Mizukage alongside his escort staring back at him from the entrance to the room, and Tobirama watched the boy prove himself as this woman's son with his next words. Huh, and here I thought we were having a peace negotiation conference. Every Kage inside the war room had already gotten up from their seats due to the earlier clash between two of their fellows, and were now rooted in their spot when they saw the most fearsome of them all arrive. Inoue couldn't help but secretly swell with pride as she saw the grudging respect every Kage showed her elder son swiftly with firm nods, which the fourth Mizukage returned with one of his own. Despite being the second youngest kage after Haru's and Sarutobi, the Mizukage was the center of attention as he walked inside alongside his group of Jinchurikis. At 27, Inoue's son had achieved more than any other kage in this room. A fact which they all knew and acknowledged when none of them dared to take their seats until the Mizukage reached his own and looked at them all. Tobirama could not help but remember his own deceased elder brother apart from Madara, who were the only men to command such respect or fear without uttering a word among the shinobi world. He didn't miss how proud and satisfied Inoue looked watching her son gain that invaluable respect even as everyone took their seats when the Mizukage took his own gracefully. The Tsuchikage entered a few moments later alongside his escort, which happened to be the 4- and 5-tailed Jinchuriki alongside Onoki. Not surprisingly, Mew took up his seat at the center of the table much to the ire of the other cages and a knowing smirk from Naruto, who didn't say anything more. Now that we are all here and settled, let's get straight to the point without wasting any time, began Mew seriously. Considering how two of their ranks had nearly came to blows earlier, the entire assembly of military leaders agreed with nods as none wanted to be here any more than necessary. I agree. What are Awagakore's terms for surrender? Asked Naruto without a flinch, even as some of the smaller cages did exactly that upon seeing Onoki bristle and Hiruzen to sigh. Thankfully, Mew simply narrowed his eyes at the blonde man. There shall be none. Iwa's allies may have fallen due to their incompetence in defending their own countries, but our army still outnumbers every nation present in this room. Not to mention, with our allies put together, we have even additional fighters alongside 3 Jinchuriki to deal with our enemies. The only reason we agreed for this summit was in the greater interest of the shinobi world and its future now that so many lives have already been lost, answered Mew with more grace than Naruto had imagined the man to be capable of. If Kiri and Konoha continue punitive actions against your faction, we not only outnumber you in men but also Jinchuriki, warned Tobirama coldly, unwilling to let the Tsuchikage get away with making threats of any kind or making the other nations believe that he was more stronger than anyone else. The Senju clan head's son was having the same thought as he looked directly at the Tsuchikage, followed by everyone else. We don't even need to continue military conflict with you. Together our two great nations alongside our allies constitute more than 60% of the world's population and nearly 70% of the global economy. If we sanction and blockade you together, your crumbling economy will collapse completely in months. No army despite its large size can fight on empty stomachs and even more emptier national coffers to finance their operations. You have lost, and that is the reality, Lord Mew, said Naruto frankly. Such arrogance. I would like to see this bravado when we crush you on the battlefield, warned Onoki in a fit of rage. I'm sure the Raikage shared your feelings, although he was twice your size and strength when he faced me in battle, taunted Naruto, making Inoue alongside few more cages chuckle. We are here to sue for peace, not more war, reminded Mifune of the samurai. Even as Onoki and the other cages bickered amongst each other, Mew's gaze was fixed firmly upon the one that would play a major role in deciding the future. Naruto Namikaze was silent, and despite his favorable situation, Mew saw a shred of worry in those eyes. After several long moments of continued bickering, Mew intervened and stopped everyone before looking back at the Mizukage. What do you want? Asked Mew straightforwardly. I do not want to continue this war, for enough lives have already been lost and we all have bigger problems to face, answered Naruto. Bigger problems? Quizzed Mew in a curious voice. The reason why I am interested in ending this war, apart from the lives already lost and the sheer destruction that has happened, is the existence of a threat that concerns us all. One that is steadily marching towards our world even as we continue fighting against each other. The Otsutsuki, explained Naruto seriously. Upon seeing that he had the attention of the entire assembly, the 4th Mizukage got up from his seat and walked towards the center of the room so that everyone could see him. Thousands of years ago, when mankind was still in its infancy and engaged in endless wars amongst themselves, they failed to notice that our world was marked by another faction. One not native to this earth, explained Naruto. Nonsense. Are we seriously listening to this? Asked Onoki in disbelief, earning a firm nod from Kakazu. Continue, Mizukage, said Mew without a flinch. But Lord Second, began Onoki, only to receive a threatening glare from his master which made him clench his fist and regain his silence. The Otsutsuki are a race of parasites who, while having form similar to humans somewhat in appearance, are unlike us in everything else. They are beings that harvest chakra from the worlds they mark and destroy the native populace in it forever. While mankind waged wars, 2 of the Otsutsuki arrived here to plant a divine tree. A mechanism through which they suck the very life force of our world alongside those of every living being on this planet over time to give birth to a fruit of unimaginable power which the Otsutsuki then consume to increase their power and sustain their near-immortal lifespan. However, this time the plans went awry when one of their own members from the pair which they sent to our planet got attached to humanity and this world. Her name was Kaguya Otsutsuki, who betrayed and her fellow partner, consumed the divine fruit herself, gaining unimaginable power that allowed her to end all wars between humanity in a year itself. Instantaneous peace. Mew was intrigued as he continued listening because instead of just speaking, the 4th Mizukage was using a mild genjutsu to make everyone actually see a narrated visual of the events. The man sure had a way of connecting with people. However, absolute power corrupts, and Kaguya soon turned into a tyrant as she constantly feared her clansmen taking action against her for betraying them and choosing this world alongside humanity. Her reign turned into one of terror where she tried to suppress anyone to death if they posed any kind of threat to her defense of this world against the Otsutsuki. She started preparing an army to face her clansmen when they eventually arrived. In time she would have 2 sons with whom she shared her chakra. But things continued to worsen until the very people Kaguya swore to protect started hating and fearing her. She became cruel beyond redemption, ultimately leading her own sons to revolt against her tyranny. Enraged, she merged with the divine tree to take the form of the 10 tails and recapture the chakra she shared with her sons. After months of brutal conflict, the sons defeated their mother and sealed her away. The elder son, whom we now know as the Sage of 6 Paths, became the Jinchuriki of the 10 Tails to prevent it from destroying our world. His younger brother moved to the moon to watch over the husk of the 10 Tails and the final resting place of their mother. The Sage of 6 Paths taught ninju to humanity in the hopes of uniting us all through cooperation and the power of chakra. But he failed, and at the end of his life, he distributed the 10 Tails into 9-tailed beasts to suppress its power forever. At his deathbed from his own 2 sons, he chose the younger one to be his successor, which started a conflict between his 2 sons which transformed into the Clan Wars era for 3,000 years. The elder son's descendants came to be known as the Uchiha clan, whereas the younger son's descendants branched into the Senju and Uzumaki clans. Even the Kaguya clan in Kirigakure and Hyuga clan from Konoha are related to the sage's family through either his direct descendants or those of his brother. The Clan Wars era came to an end when the sage's descendants, namely the Uchiha and Senju, put aside the differences for peace, making others do the same in time. However, this only led to momentary peace until the ninja villages started fighting amongst themselves for more power. When the genjutsu ended and the visions came to an end, not one cage was left unmoved as an eerie silence stretched across the war room. What is the proof of this story? And how does this relate to the Otsutsuki threat you said we face? Asked Onoki in a much subdued voice than before. Plenty of proof, Onoki. The first one is the Uchiha stone tablet in the possession of said clan in Konoha, where their founder has etched this story for his descendants. Even the Senju and Uzumaki clans have some version of this history with themselves, as do the Kaguya and Hyuga to an extent. More importantly, a comrade of mine actually found an Otsutsuki cave where we discovered more proof of this threat and our history, explained Naruto patiently. Tobirama narrowed his gaze as he knew this comrade of the Mizukage was none other than Madara Uchiha, a man whom not a single cage in this room would trust should his existence and collaboration with Naruto become known. As to how the Otsutsuki are a threat to us all now, they are here, or at least their scouts are. My comrade and I faced one of them and him as he tried to capture Kirigakure's Jinchuriki to get the tailed beasts inside of them, lied Naruto, omitting the fact that the scout had actually been after the Gedo statue in Madara's possession. As part of his spy training, he had been taught that a good lie always had a shred of truth as well as falsehoods mixed together to lend credence to a story. More importantly, with every Jinchuriki of the world present in this room and the cages controlling them right here, it hit straight home as they all started looking at each other, as this was a direct threat to not only the lives of the Jinchuriki but also the military power of their nations should they be captured or by the Otsutsuki. Where is the body of this Otsutsuki scout Mizukage? Asked Lord Mew calmly. Naruto nodded and looked sideways where he knew several Zetsus were hiding within the walls and capturing this entire meeting with the astral projection technique which they stole from Azu recently. One way or another, the rest of humanity would learn about the truths being discussed by the military leaders of the world, even if the very men and women chose not to reveal this to the public themselves. He picked up a scroll from his pouch and placed it on the ground. Many cages tensed, but the Tsuchikage and Tobirama reassured him as a puff of smoke was unleashed. As it cleared, everyone was shocked to see a humanoid corpse appearing before them, but that was the extent of the similarity. For this pale-skinned male was nearly 8 feet tall, had blank white pupilless eyes similar somewhat to a Hyuga, was quite muscular in build and had a nasty hole where his heart was supposed to be, indicating that to be the cause of death. What was a clear indicating of this corpse not being related to any human with the strange twin horns on its head. Kami, whispered Inoue in disbelief. Exclaimed Yosuke Meiji, the leader of the hidden grass village. Even the Tsuchikage and Hokage alongside other leaders looked speechless as they stared at the strange corpse, making the Mizukage seize the moment as he clenched his fist and thumped it over his sea, bringing everyone's attention back to him. We may have our differences and have killed each other for decades, but this threat concerns us all. This scout won't be the last as an army follows in their wake. We need to prepare together, because if the Otsutsuki get the tailed beasts, then our world is doomed. It won't matter which shinobi nation rules this world then, as we all shall if that happens. I am willing to set aside this war and establish a peace between us all. If it means saving my wife's life, who is a Jinchuriki, along with those of the other 3 Jinchuriki standing right beside her and the other Jinchuriki in this room. For the future of humanity. I want you to unite and fight with me, asked Naruto fiercely. Neither our nations or our daimyos are willing to fight even more wars. It is why we are even having this peace summit, said Hanzo Salamander seriously. The samurai do not wish to involve ourselves into the conflict of shinobi, said Mifune calmly. You just wish to create more strife between shinobi, the daimyos and the civilian populace. By instilling fear within us all against a fictional enemy, you are just trying to buy time to strengthen your forces and crush us all one by one. Yelled Kakazu defiantly, the leader of the land of waterfalls. Mei couldn't believe what she just heard and was even more horrified when the other cages looked at her husband with even more bitterness in their eyes. Onoki jumped on that chance right away without hesitation. Lord Kakazu's right. This man here who claims to be saving humanity has mercilessly butchered 4 feudal dynasties and conquered several nations for his own power. Do not be deceived by his lies. If we allow him to lead us astray, our nations would meet the same fate sooner or later, argued Onoki passionately. He is the enemy of the shinobi world. Kushina saw true disappointment and sadness appear on her oldest friend's face as he heard the other cages fighting against his argument. The only ones who were even trying to defend him were Inoue, Tobirama and Mito, but the tide was turning against him quickly as the paranoid leaders banded together. Ultimately, Lord Mu, who had been silent until now, asked a question which made everyone look at the Mizukage for an answer. Should our daimyos or people refuse to accept this supposed threat, what then? Do you expect us shinobi to overthrow our feudal lords? Asked Mu straightforwardly. I want humanity to be united to face this common threat to us all, no matter the cost. The Tsuchikage was quite satisfied with that answer, as he actually saw real honesty in his opponent's eyes, and it made more sense as to why the Mizukage was willing to sue for peace despite being in a condition to continue his war if willing to accept heavy losses, which he was capable of. Ultimately, Mu ended up calling it a day and the negotiations to be continued the next day in order to cool down the rising tensions while allowing the cages to comprehend what they had just learned. Mei had been resting in the room which she shared with her husband. It was night time and the Mizukage had gone to check up on the remaining 3 Jinchuriki, accompanying him, leaving her alone to stare at a Wagakure through the lone window they had. She had again spotted the woman her husband had an affair with in the past, the one she had known as Kaori the mercenary, who in truth had been a Spartan survivor named Kushina, loyal to Azu. She had spotted the woman as one of the Azukage's bodyguard, looking sadly at Naruto but not doing anything more. Mei didn't know how to feel about that. More importantly, she had seen her mother-in-law in person. A woman supposed to be but brought back to life thanks to Naruto's cooperation with Madara himself. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts, and upon opening it she was left even more speechless when she saw Inoue Namikaze looking at her with a smile. Mei, is it? Asked Inoue in a kind voice. Yes, answered the auburn-haired woman hesitantly, even as she gestured the older woman to step inside. Not only was Inoue the second Uzukage but also Naruto's mother, watching her today had made it absolutely clear to Mei that Naruto may have inherited his tactical brilliance in warfare and politics from Tobirama alongside some of his powers like water style, but his looks and personality alongside his infamous Harashin technique was something he got from this woman. I have wanted to meet you for some time. Judging from your look, I guess my son told you the truth and what he is planning somewhat at least, said Inoue honestly. He has, acknowledged Mei. I wanted to thank you personally for sticking by his side despite everything that has happened. It speaks volumes about your character as a person and for making him a father and me a grandmother, even if I never got to see my grandchildren as of yet, said Inoue sincerely, the last part uttered with true regret. My mother's long ago and I never thought our children would get the love of a grandmother until you came back. I would be glad to make you meet them sometime. As for the rest, I married Naruto and I am sticking by his side no matter what happens. That is my duty as his wife and I truly believe he wants what is best for all of humanity. There is no dishonor in following someone like that despite his past and truth, confessed Mei with a smile. If you don't mind, I would like to get to know you better, requested Inoue, making Mei's smile even more wider. I would like that very much. Hiruzen Sarutobi secretly entered into an isolated room to find the second Tsuchikage and Onoki waiting for him as planned. The third Hokage looked quite tense even as the other two men gestured him to have a seat and offered refreshments which he declined. Of all the things, we hadn't expected the Mizukage to say what he had today, said Lord Mu seriously. He's lying, Lord Second. Naruto Namikaze is a devious man, replied Onoki fiercely. On that we can agree. Now that you guys know his full truth, do you truly want to trust such a man? Questioned Hiruzen straightforwardly. He had made a decision alongside Danzo post-secret consultations with the Fire Daimyo after their nation lost contact with Uzushiogakure. Nobody else from Konoha including Tobirama or Mito were aware of this development but judging from how disinterested Tobirama had been during the entire affair with Izuku made Hiruzen seriously question his mentor's conflicted loyalty towards his son and to Konoha at the same time. Tobirama had even advocated him to stay out of that entire affair despite knowing Naruto had every reason to overthrow Hanzo Uzumaki because of their tainted past. For all his faults, Hanzo Uzumaki had been a staunch ally of Konoha and his loss affected their nation severely. Maybe it was Tobirama's way of apologizing to his son for being unable to save Ino Namikaze's life and for Konoha's lies about her death, an admirable decision as a father but not in the interests of their nation. That decision had consequences for everyone and was the point where Hiruzen and Danzo had to brief the Fire Daimyo about Naruto Namikaze's real truth and how it compromised Tobirama Senju and his clan greatly. Already Naruto had destroyed 4 feudal dynasties and was posing a continued threat to the remaining daimyos including Hiruzen's own, something which greatly worried the Fire Daimyo who didn't want his own rule and family to meet a similar fate as that of the Water Daimyo. After what Naruto did to Izu his own nation for the sake of his twisted justice, Danzo had persuaded Hiruzen that a man like that was no true shinobi and sooner or later he would harm Konoha and the Fire Nation for being unable to save his beloved wife and lying to him about her death. You're right. A spy can never be trusted, especially one who orchestrated a coup in his own nation, agreed Onoki. I am still interested in learning about this Otsutsuki threat, said Mu honestly. We shall once we have dealt with Naruto Namikaze who poses an existential threat to us all. The Fire Daimyo wishes we deal with him together swiftly, said Hiruzen seriously. So does the Earth Daimyo. The other daimyos won't raise any objection to that as well since Kirigakure is becoming too strong for everyone, agreed Mu calmly. Lord Hiruzen, I don't think Tobirama Senju would be happy with these secret negotiations that you are carrying out with us once he learns of this, warned Onoki, making the Sarutobi clan head grimace but nod. I am well aware. However, he was the one that taught me that nation comes before all, even my own teacher. More importantly, I answer to the Fire Daimyo as you do with your own. Tobirama alongside the Senju clan are too close to this matter which is why we had to do what's necessary for Konoha's future. It is true that we have been enemies in the past but at the very least you do not wish to destroy the shinobi world and overthrow the daimyos of the world, explained Hiruzen honestly. Mu had to agree with that as he had clearly seen a frightening resolve in Naruto Namikaze's eyes this morning, that man would burn down the entire world in order to achieve his own dreams. Our forces have already moved in positions near to Kirigakure. Once we have dealt with the Mizukage, we shall take care of his arrogant nation should they still try to intervene, said Mew without hesitation. So have our own. We'll need a proper for all of it, warned Hiruzen. We will. Our men know the strategy, so do yours. Let's put an end to this guy right here, promised Onoki. Hiruzen looked at the hand being offered by the second Tsuchikage himself and shook it without any regrets. You left us no choice, Naruto. The fourth Mizukage had been sitting in his predecessor's room with the two men sharing a smoke while overlooking a Wagakure from their balcony. I don't trust these men, Naruto. They'll betray Kirigakure as soon as they get a chance, warned Yagura as he exhaled a huge puff of smoke in the air. Are the preparations I asked you to make completed? Asked the fourth Mizukage calmly, as he too exhaled smoke in the air from his cigarette. They are. Upon hearing that confirmation, Naruto merely nodded, making Yagura glance at the blonde man curiously. They're right to fear you. Your tenacity even makes me nervous sometimes, said Yagura honestly. The things I do and will continue to are all for the sake of humanity, including Kirigakure. The only way to win is to fight, Yagura, answered Naruto without hesitation. On that we can agree, replied the third Mizukage somberly. They were both interrupted when a new person arrived in their room secretly and looked directly at the fourth Mizukage. They are making their move, Lord Fourth. Hiruzen Sarutobi has betrayed you. Naruto clenched his fist as the white Zetsu clone made that dreaded revelation, making his worst fears come true. Madara had warned him about this, but he had naively hoped that he could rally all these nations. That humanity would truly unite when faced with an external foe that threatened its very existence. So disappointing, whispered Yagura with a sigh, which was exactly what Naruto felt deep within his heart as a glare arrived in his now reddened gaze. Yagura didn't miss a glimpse of that dreaded monster rising within the man before him. One that had never surrendered to the darkness of the shinobi world and kept on fighting. The only one who can save humanity now is you, fourth Mizukage. White Zetsu's words made Naruto clench his fists as a fearless determination arrived in his hardened gaze. I am sorry, Ino. I tried doing what you wanted me to, but now I must do what's necessary. Kirigakure. General Abe had just finished the council session to discuss about their hidden village's defenses with Lord Minae's Terumi, Lord Yuki and the Anbu commander now that their legions had marched off to their borders in order to act swiftly against their enemies should things take a turn for the worst at the Cage Summit. Before the four men responsible for Kiri's defense in the absence of their cage could leave for their respective homes, an Anbu walked into the room. Lord Minae's Terumi couldn't help but frown when he saw the man was from the Kaguya clan, as things had still not truly been amicable between the clans that sided with Naruto Namikaze during the Civil War and the ninja clans like the Kaguya who had sided with Yagura Karatachi. Even if their members were now pardoned by the fourth Mizukage himself for their service in the campaign against Kumogakure, one couldn't help but wonder if at least some of the Kaguya were still secretly loyal to Yagura. Why are you here, Kimimaro? Asked the Anbu commander seriously to his subordinate. The Kaguya saluted all four leaders before procuring a scroll from his pouch and placed it on the table nearest to them. Lord Yagura asked me to reveal this to you in person. He said it concerns the safety of our nation and its future, said Kimimaro fearlessly, even as everyone except General Abe glared at him. How dare you listen to a traitor like Yagura, an enemy of our nation? After the pardon Lord Naruto gave to your clan, is this how you repay his generosity? Asked Lord Minae's furiously, and was unnerved when he received a cold glare from the Kaguya clan member who remained defiant. Who do you think is the true enemy, my lords? General Abe felt a shiver run down his spine and his heart skip a beat upon hearing those ominous words. Even as Lord Minae's, Lord Yuki and the Anbu commander moved to arrest the Kaguya Anbu, the pale-skinned man simply pointed his finger at the scroll placed on the table, making the former feudal general move towards it. Even as Kimimaro Kaguya was grabbed roughly and restrained, he kept looking at General Abe, who opened the scroll and looked back at the Anbu in horror, making the man smile in satisfaction as his next words shook everything the older man had ever believed in. This is our real enemy. General Abe's hand started shaking when he spotted the face of the fourth Mizukage on an Uzushiogakure dossier that unveiled the greatest betrayal of their nation. Next day, Tobarama and Mito were quite confused when they were informed that the Cage Summit would be resumed in the evening instead of early morning. What was even more worrying for the Senju leader and his sister-in-law was the absence of Hiruzen since yesterday post the Cage Summit. The two of them had tried meeting Naruto and Inoue. The former had declined their request while the latter had been spending time with Mai Terumi and had also declined. It had left Tobirama and Mito frustrated, but they kept their composure until they met Hiruzen again in the evening today. On being asked about his whereabouts, the third Hokage merely suggested Onoki had offered him a personal tour of their village's gardens. Before Tobirama could question his student about such a suspicious answer, Hiruzen reminded him it was time for the Cage Summit to be resumed, forcing them to quickly join him in reaching the venue on time. As soon as Tobirama entered the room alongside the other cages, he didn't know why, but he felt something was off. There was a tension in the air that he couldn't describe, and everyone seemed on edge, which was understandable considering the events of yesterday. Naruto had truly taken a gamble by revealing the Otsutsuki threat, and only time would tell how it would turn out. Speaking of the said cage, he arrived a few moments later, and unlike his attitude yesterday, the fourth Mizukage had changed his approach and seemed quite humble as he actually met each and every cage alongside every Jinchuriki, shaking hands with every one of them and even going as far as to apologize to them all for the events of yesterday, which surprised nearly everyone. He even came and did the same with Tobirama and Mito. "I'm truly sorry for this mess, Lord Tobirama and Lady Mito," said Naruto sincerely, looking at Mito with a regretful gaze, and before Tobirama or Mito could say something, Onoki requested everyone to gain their seats in order to start the meeting. The fourth Mizukage complied and did what was requested, even as his supporters flanked him protectively. "We learned quite a lot yesterday. A day of revealing secrets and learning truths, I would say. Since we are on this path, I would like to reveal one little truth about our dear Mizukage who wants to save us all from the Otsutsuki. With your permission, Lord Mu," asked Onoki with a cunning smile, earning a nod from the second Tsuchikage. Tobirama and Mito both froze in horror upon hearing that, and their fears turned into reality when Onoki then turned towards Hiruzen Sarutobi himself with a cold smirk. "May we, Lord Hokage?" Inoue Namikaze alongside Commander Reika and Kushina realized what was happening when they saw Hiruzen give a grave nod, making the three Kunoichi extremely tense. "Saru?" asked Tobirama in disbelief, and his heart truly sank when Hiruzen looked away guiltily. "I'm sorry, Sensei. This is for Konoha's sake. The Fire Daimyo wishes for it as Darai and Danzo after what happened with Uzushiogakure in the past. You and the Senju clan are too close to this man to make an objective decision for the sake of our nation," whispered Hiruzen somberly. Tobirama felt as if someone had destroyed his world in an instant, and it hurt more than anything, for it was his own students and feudal lord who had made this decision. He looked at his son in horror to find the man sitting stoically in his seat, even as Onoki did the unthinkable. "You see, our dear Mizukage here is a trained liar, a spy of Uzushiogakure. His true name is Minato Namikaze, a former Spartan Black Ops captain that fought against Kumogakure in the First Great Ninja War. His incompetence got his comrades K, which made him swore a vow of revenge against the great nations and every other shinobi village. He swore to eliminate the feudal system whom he considered to be responsible for these wars. He jumped at the chance to infiltrate Kirigakure, fooled everyone there to actually become Mizukage in order to complete his personal mission," explained Onoki in a cold voice, as he summoned dossiers shared by Hiruzen on every cage's desk, including the Azukage herself. Mei's legs started shaking as her worst fears were coming true right before the entire shinobi world. This was exactly what Naruto had warned her against, but she had not listened to him and had insisted to keep his secrets, their children. Naruto Namikaze launched a brutal war and destroyed 4 feudal dynasties alongside Kumogakure, whom he hated for personal reasons, using Kirigakure as a pawn in his scheme. He even fooled Konoha to form an alliance in order to continue his ambitions, but the first Azukage Hanzo Uzumaki realized his true intentions. He tried to stop him and was overthrown and imprisoned by this man. He even replaced Hanzo Uzumaki with his own mother. "Isn't that right, Inoue Namikaze?" asked Onoki with a satisfied smile. The feeling was short-lived when he saw the woman merely giving him a cold glance, the same as her son who had strangely remained silent. Tobirama was quite surprised when he saw no outburst from any of the other cages upon hearing all of this. They looked furious and ready to K, but not surprised at all. It was as if they were prepared for this and realized just where Hiruzen must have been all this time. This man wants to destroy the shinobi world and feudal system. He wants to rule this world himself. He would have continued this war if all of us had not gotten together to negotiate peace. Now he tries to gain our trust by making us believe this imaginary Otsutsuki threat, but make no mistake, he would betray us the moment he gets a chance. Just like he did with his own nation and cage, said Onoki decisively. The second Tsuchikage got up from his seat when his student finished revealing the carefully crafted truth that Hiruzen had shared. Lord Mu had to admit the young brat or his comrade Danzo were quite devious. They had revealed the truth in a way which completely protected Tobirama and the Senju clan, even painted Uzushi and Kirigakure as victims of Naruto Namikaze's treachery. Mu knew the real truth, but he wanted to use it at a later time once he had destroyed Naruto and Kirigakure if they still decided to fight for the treacherous cage, not that he had much hope for that outcome. For now, he was more than satisfied to see the helpless look on Tobirama's face as his son was now being surrounded by all the cages of the world, even as Iwagakure's Anbu Black Ops squads entered the room in force. For now, the Tsuchikage was more than satisfied to cooperate with Konoha, and later, once he had dealt with Naruto and Kirigakure, the Leaf Nation would be next. Now that he had seen the division in their ranks, it was possible to crush them in time and establish Iwagakure's dominance over the shinobi world. There was still a way left for him to win this war by pitting his enemies against each other, and the greatest irony was that it was Hiruzen who gave him the means to seize this victory. Let's unite as one, my fellow cages, to deal with this traitor, urged Mu passionately, making every cage except Inoue, Tobirama, Mito and Naruto to get up from their seats with determination burning in their eyes. Onoki, now leading the Anbus of his nation, pointed a finger straight towards the silent Mizukage. We have established anti-teleportation seals across our entire village, Mizukage. You can't escape from here. Surrender peacefully and we shall be lenient towards your people, including your wife, proposed Onoki. He was pleased when his words finally managed to make Naruto get up from his seat peacefully. Mei tried to move towards him but froze on receiving a harsh glare. Even Tobirama and Mito couldn't help but watch in horrifying silence as the blonde cage walked towards Lord Mu in a subdued manner. Many younger shinobi in the room couldn't believe what they were witnessing, as it was the first time many had even seen the legendary fourth Mizukage in person. So that's Naruto Namikaze, whispered one of the Iwa Anbu curiously, even as he and his fellow comrades led by Onoki and the other cages surrounded the Mizukage. Hey, Lord Tsuchikage and Onoki-sama really cornered him up today, agreed one of his comrades. He's done for. Inoue bitterly clenched her fists as she heard what was being said, even as her eldest son now stood before the second Tsuchikage, who looked at him with a judgmental but satisfied gaze. Mu was however surprised when the fourth Mizukage offered his hand and actually smiled. Well played, Lord Mu. You too, Hiruzen, said Naruto calmly, making Hiruzen grimace and Mu to reluctantly shake the offered hand as a final courtesy to a vanquished enemy. Fourth Mizukage Naruto Namikaze, do you have any last words? Even as Mu asked that decisive question, he couldn't help but frown when he saw Yagura the former Mizukage smirk deviously. His eyes widened in horror when Naruto's eyes turned red, and the man's next words horrified every person in the room. It's time, Madara. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.